Step away from the vehicle, hands where I can see them. The words land like a slap across the humid Georgia air. A sedan sits at the gas pump, engine still ticking from the long drive. The woman beside it freezes mid-reach for the fuel nozzle, her fingers hovering inches from the handle. She does not turn around. Not yet. 20 years of training have taught her that sudden movements invite escalation, and escalation invites tragedy. The crunch of boots on gravel grows closer. A shadow stretches across the concrete, blocking the afternoon sun. The radio clipped to the approaching officer's shoulder crackles with static. Then a dispatcher's voice bleeds through. All units, be advised. Vehicle matching description of stolen sedan. Georgia plate, November Tango 472. Last seen heading south on Route 12. Approach with caution. The woman's eyes drift to her rental car's license plate. November Tango 472. Every digit, every letter. A perfect match to a vehicle she has never seen before today. I said, hands, now. She raises her palms slowly, deliberately, making each movement visible. The officer's boots stop 3 feet behind her. She can smell the leather of his belt, the faint trace of coffee on his breath. His hand rests on something at his hip. She does not need to look to know what. Turn around. Slow. She turns. The face staring back at her is older now, harder. The boyish softness has calcified into something angular and suspicious. Gray eyes that once held warmth now hold only cold assessment. A jaw that once smiled easily now clenches with practiced authority. 20 years have changed him. 20 years have changed everything. But he does not recognize her. Good. She was not planning to remind him. Not yet. The gas station sits at the edge of Belmont County, Georgia, a place where tradition runs deeper than the red clay soil. A faded sign at the county line proclaims, "Welcome to Belmont, where tradition meets tomorrow." Someone has spray painted over the second half. Now it simply reads, "Welcome to Belmont, where tradition." The rest disappears into rust and silence. The officer steps closer, his badge catching the light. Sergeant Colton Merriweather. The name etched into brass confirms what her memory already knew. The boy who once threw rocks at bullies to protect her has become the man with his hand on a weapon, treating her like a threat. License and registration. His voice carries no recognition, no flicker of the past. To him, she is just another black woman in casual clothes, driving through his county, matching a description that fits half the sedans in the southeastern United States. She reaches slowly for her purse. Slow, he repeats, the word sharp as broken glass. The dispatch log continues its broadcast in the background, the words embedding themselves in her memory. Dispatch log 144733. Officer requests backup. Subject: black female, mid-30s, alone. Vehicle flagged. Approach with caution. Approach with caution. 3 words that have preceded too many tragedies. 3 words that transform citizens into suspects before a single question is asked. 3 words that she has read in hundreds of case files, always followed by the same patterns of escalation. She retrieves her license from her wallet. Her movements are precise, unhurried. The leather case falls open briefly, revealing a second card tucked behind the license. She closes it before he can see, sliding only the driver's license free. Vivian Ashford Tate, he reads aloud, squinting at the photo. His brow furrows slightly. Ashford, that name sounds familiar. Common name. He grunts, unconvinced. His eyes move from the license to her face, searching for something that does not match, finding only a woman who meets his gaze without fear. Rental agreement? She produces it from the glove compartment, each document emerging in sequence. The agreement, the confirmation number, the receipt from budget rental stamped with yesterday's date. She arranges them in order before handing them over. Edges aligned, no creases. The habit is automatic. 15 years of reviewing case files has made organization reflexive. Colton barely glances at the paperwork. His attention has shifted to the sedan itself, circling it slowly, peering through windows, testing door handles. He pops the trunk without asking permission. Her suitcase sits inside, zipped and unremarkable. He unzips it anyway, rifling through folded clothes with gloved fingers. Interesting wardrobe for a road trip, he mutters, holding up a dark blazer. Where are you headed? Visiting family. In Belmont. Nearby. His eyes narrow. The vague answer does not satisfy him. In his experience, vague answers mean something to hide. In her experience, detailed answers to fishing questions create more problems than they solve. He drops the blazer back into the suitcase without folding it. The small cruelty is deliberate. A message about who controls this interaction. The crunch of gravel announces another arrival. A black Mercedes pulls into the station, its chrome gleaming despite the dust that coats everything else. The driver steps out in a three-piece suit that costs more than most monthly salaries in Belmont County. His silver hair is swept back with precision, his smile polished to a commercial shine. Colton? The man's voice carries the easy warmth of old money greeting old friends. Everything all right here? Just a routine stop, Mr. Crutcher. Possible stolen vehicle. Leland Crutcher. The name surfaces from memory like a body from deep water. Manager of First Republic Belmont. The man who signed the papers that froze her father's accounts 2 days before his trial. The man who smiled at the cameras while explaining that the bank was simply following procedure. Crutcher's eyes slide over her, assessing and dismissing in a single glance. His gaze lingers on her casual clothes, her natural hair, the modest sedan that clearly does not belong to someone of means. These people always have some excuse, do they not? The words drip with casual contempt, not shouted, not aggressive. Simply stated as fact, the way one might observe that rain is wet, or summers are hot. The banality of prejudice, dressed in country club manners. She does not respond. Her fingers find her phone in her pocket, opening the Notes app by touch alone. Her thumb types without looking. Time, 14:52. Witness, L. Crutcher. Statement recorded. Colton continues his search, finding nothing because there is nothing to find. The rental agreement is legitimate. The vehicle identification number matches budget rentals records. Every document confirms exactly what she told him from the start. But confirmation and satisfaction are different things. The vehicle matches the description, he says finally, straightening up. I am going to need you to come down to the station for verification. Am I being detained or arrested? The question hangs between them. Crutcher watches from beside his Mercedes, openly entertained by the exchange. A gas station attendant peers through the window, phone raised, recording. Let us call it cooperative verification. That is not a legal status under Georgia Code Section 17420. Colton's jaw tightens. The statute reference catches him off guard. Most people he stops do not quote legal codes. Most people he stops are too frightened or too ignorant to challenge his authority. This woman does neither. Ma'am, I am giving you a lawful order. You have not established probable cause. The rental agreement proves legal possession. The confirmation number can be verified with a single phone call. The vehicle identification number is registered to budget rental, not to any stolen vehicle database. Each point lands with precision. Each fact chips away at his justification. Crutcher's smile fades slightly, sensing that this encounter is not following the expected script. If you are finding this story gripping, tap that subscribe button right now, because what happens next will leave you speechless. Documents can be forged, Colton says, but the confidence in his voice has wavered. Then verify them. Call Budget Rental, run the vehicle identification number, confirm the registration. You have the tools to establish truth within minutes. Instead, you are demanding I accompany you to the station based on nothing more than a description that matches thousands of vehicles. A bead of sweat rolls down Colton's temple. The afternoon heat presses down on them both, but the warmth rising in his face has nothing to do with the sun. He is not accustomed to being challenged. Not here. Not in his county. Another patrol car pulls into the station. A woman in deputy uniform steps out, her hand resting casually on her belt. Her nameplate reads, Deputy R. Vickers. She surveys the scene with calm efficiency, taking in the rental car, the open trunk, the two men facing down one woman. Sergeant, maybe we should run the vehicle identification number first? The suggestion is reasonable. The suggestion is procedure. The suggestion is exactly what should have happened before any of this began. I know how to do my job, Deputy. The response is clipped, dismissive. Vickers' expression does not change, but something shifts in her posture. A note taken, a detail filed away. Colton reaches for his handcuffs. The metal catches the light as he pulls them free. The clicking sound they make when he opens them is small, almost delicate. It carries across the gas station lot like a verdict. You are being detained for vehicle theft investigation. You have not established probable cause. Turn around. She could fight. She could resist. She could cite additional statutes, invoke her rights more forcefully, demand a supervisor. Every option calculates through her mind in fractions of seconds, weighed against probabilities and outcomes. She turns around. The handcuffs close around her wrists. They are too tight, deliberately so. The metal bites into her skin, pressure that will leave marks for days. She notes the sensation without reacting. Another detail. Another piece of evidence. Badge number? Colton pauses, surprised by the calm request. What? Your badge number, for my records. He reads it with exaggerated slowness, mockery dripping from every syllable. 6722. Write it down if you can. In the patrol car, the cage between front and back seats casts shadows like prison bars across her face. Colton slides behind the wheel. Vickers remains at the gas station, watching the Mercedes pull away, watching the attendant finally lower his phone. The engine rumbles to life. Through the window, the Welcome to Belmont sign shrinks in the distance. The spray-painted vandalism catches the light one final time before disappearing around a curve. Welcome to Belmont, where tradition remains exactly what it has always been. The drive to the station takes 11 minutes. Colton spends most of it on his radio, reporting the stop, confirming the detention, requesting that the vehicle be towed for further examination. His voice carries the casual certainty of a man who has never been questioned, never been doubted, never been held accountable for the small tyrannies he inflicts daily. She sits in silence, wrists aching, mind working. The body cam clipped to his chest blinks red. Recording. She adjusts her position slightly, ensuring her face remains visible in the frame. If this footage survives, if it is not lost to technical difficulties or corrupted files, it will show exactly what happened. A woman complying. A woman restrained. A woman whose only crime was driving while black through a county that never learned to see her as human. The station is a squat brick building that has not been updated since the 1980s. American flag hangs limp in the windless heat. A plaque near the entrance commemorates officers fallen in the line of duty. The names are all the same handful of families: Merriweather, Crutcher, Whitwell, the founding dynasties of Belmont County, their legacies carved in brass. Inside, the air conditioning struggles against the humidity. Ceiling tiles show water stains from leaks that were never properly repaired. Wanted posters line one wall, most of them featuring faces that share the same complexion as the woman now being led through the lobby in handcuffs. Heads turn. Conversations pause. A secretary stops mid-keystroke. Everyone watches. Colton enjoys the attention. His stride lengthens. His shoulders square. His grip on her arm tightens just enough to be uncomfortable without being outright painful. He is performing. The conquering officer bringing in his catch. The processing room smells of stale coffee and old paper. A single table, 2 chairs, a mirror that fools no one about what lies behind the glass. Sit. She sits. Now. Colton settles into the chair across from her, pulling out a notepad with theatrical deliberation. Let us start over. Where did you really get that car? I have answered that question. Rental agreement, confirmation number, contact for budget rental. All verified. See, that is the problem with you people. The phrase slides out easily, a weapon he has wielded so often it no longer requires thought. Always got some excuse, some paperwork, some technicality. The door opens behind him. 2 men enter. The first is older, silver-haired, wearing civilian clothes that somehow carry more authority than any uniform. His face is weathered by decades in the sun, but his eyes remain sharp, predatory. The second is Leland Crutcher, still in his 3-piece suit, smiling as if arriving at a pleasant social function. What do we have here, son? Son. The word confirms what the resemblance already suggested. Harlan Merriweather, former sheriff of Belmont County, retired from official duty, but never from power. His influence seeps through every institution in town like groundwater through limestone. Possible vehicle theft, Colton reports, straightening in his chair. Suspect is being difficult. Harlan's gaze settles on her. The assessment is longer than Crutcher's, more thorough. He studies her face, her posture, the way she meets his eyes without flinching. Something flickers in his expression. Recognition? Memory? The moment passes before she can identify it. Book her. We will sort it out in the morning. You have not verified the vehicle status. Her voice cuts through the room, clear and level. This is unlawful arrest under 18 United States Code, Section 242. The statute hangs in the air. Federal law, civil rights violations, the kind of charge that ends careers, that pierces the shield of local immunity, that brings outside investigators into quiet counties where certain families prefer to handle things themselves. Harlan Merriweather laughs. The sound is low, dismissive, the chuckle of a man who has heard threats before and watched them evaporate like morning dew. Federal law, in my county. He shakes his head slowly, amused. That is cute. He turns to leave, Crutcher falling into step beside him. At the door, Harlan pauses, glancing back over his shoulder. Make sure she understands how things work here. The door closes behind them. Colton's smile returns, wider now, emboldened by his father's presence. He pulls out forms, booking papers, the bureaucratic machinery of detention grinding into motion. But she is not watching him. Her attention has fixed on something else, something that froze her blood the moment Harlan Merriweather walked through that door. The watch on his wrist. Gold. Antique. Engraved with initials that catch the light when he moves. R.A. Raymond Ashford. Her father's watch. The one her mother gave him on their wedding day. The one that was seized as evidence 20 years ago and never returned. The one that Harlan Merriweather now wears like a trophy, a reminder of the family he destroyed, the man he buried. 20 years. He has worn it for 20 years. And he did not even recognize the daughter of the man he robbed. The processing continues. Fingerprints. Photographs. Questions she answers with the minimum words required. The forms pile up, each one another layer of fabrication, another brick in the wall of false charges designed to punish her for the crime of challenging authority. She signs where required. She provides information when demanded. She does none of it because she is defeated. She does it because every form, every timestamp, every recorded interaction becomes evidence. Evidence of procedure violated. Evidence of rights denied. Evidence that will matter later, when the truth finally surfaces. Hours pass. The holding cell is small, cold, deliberately uncomfortable. The bench offers no padding. The toilet sits exposed in the corner. The overhead light never turns off, buzzing with the constant drone of cheap fluorescence. She does not sleep. Instead, she reviews. Every face, every word, every deviation from proper procedure. The arrest without probable cause. The search without warrant. The detention without charges. The tightened handcuffs. The racial comments. The refusal to verify documents. Each violation catalogued, organized, filed away in the mental database she has spent her career building. Dawn arrives, gray and reluctant. Footsteps echo in the corridor. Keys jangle. The cell door swings open. "You are free to go." Colton stands in the doorway, his expression carefully neutral. Behind him, paperwork sits in a folder that looks hastily assembled. The vehicle has been verified as legitimate rental property. No charges will be filed at this time. At this time, the qualifier is deliberate. A reminder that charges can always materialize later, that freedom in Belmont County is provisional, revocable, dependent on the goodwill of men who have demonstrated they have none. Consider this a warning. She rises from the bench, stretching muscles cramped from 14 hours in the cold. The marks on her wrists have deepened to purple, clear evidence of cuffs applied too tight, left on too long. A warning for what? For your attitude. She walks toward the exit, each step measured, controlled. At the door, she pauses. "You know what my attitude is called, Sergeant?" She does not turn around, does not give him the satisfaction of seeing her face. "It is called knowing my rights and the law, and exactly what happens when people in power forget that both apply to everyone." The morning sun hits her face as she steps outside. The air is thick, humid, carrying the scent of magnolia and red clay. Her rental car sits in the impound lot across the street, keys presumably waiting at the release desk. She does not go there immediately. Instead, she stands on the station steps, looking out at the town that once was home. The courthouse where her father was convicted on fabricated evidence. The bank where his accounts were frozen to prevent him from affording proper defense. The newspaper office that published stories calling him a thief before any verdict was reached. Belmont County, Georgia, where tradition meets tomorrow. Where tradition always wins. Her phone buzzes. A text message from an unknown number. Heard you had an interesting night. Welcome back to Belmont. T.W. Tobias Wren, the investigative journalist who covered her father's case 2 decades ago. The only reporter who questioned the evidence, challenged the narrative, dug into connections that powerful families preferred to keep buried. He was driven out of town for his efforts. His career nearly destroyed. But he never stopped digging. She types a reply. Interesting is one word for it. We should talk. The response comes immediately. Same diner as before. 2 p.m. Come alone. She pockets the phone and walks toward the impound lot to retrieve her car. The sedan looks untouched from the outside, but she knows better. They searched it thoroughly. They photographed everything. They copied down every detail that might prove useful later. That is fine. She has details of her own. The drive through town takes her past landmarks of memory. The elementary school where she learned to read. The park where she played with neighborhood children. The church where her mother sang in the choir every Sunday. The house on Maple Street where she grew up, now occupied by strangers, the porch swing replaced with something modern and soulless, and the house on Cedar Avenue. She slows as she passes. The Merriweather estate sits behind iron gates, its columns white, its lawn manicured, its wealth displayed with the casual arrogance of those who have never questioned where it came from. A gardener trims hedges near the entrance. A luxury car sits in the circular driveway. 20 years ago, she stood at those gates begging for answers, begging to know why they were taking her father, begging Colton, her friend, her childhood protector, to tell her it was all a mistake. He closed the gates in her face. She did not beg again. The First Republic Bank of Belmont occupies a corner building downtown, its facade updated with modern glass while retaining the original limestone foundation. A monument to the marriage of old money and new aesthetics. The Crutcher family name appears nowhere on the exterior, but everyone in town knows who controls what happens inside those walls. She parks across the street, watching the entrance. Customers enter and exit with the predictable rhythm of small-town commerce. Most are white. Those who are not move with the particular caution of people who know they are being watched, being judged, being measured against standards they can never meet. At 11:47 a.m., Leland Crutcher emerges. He pauses on the steps to adjust his cufflinks, a practiced gesture of wealth and leisure. His eyes sweep the street, landing briefly on her sedan before moving on without interest. He does not recognize the car. He does not recognize her. Good. She waits until he disappears around the corner, then steps out of the vehicle and crosses to the bank entrance. Inside, the air conditioning is aggressive, almost punishing. The lobby gleams with marble floors and brass fixtures. Teller windows line one wall, each station occupied by employees in matching uniforms. A water cooler gurgles in the corner. Soft music plays from hidden speakers, the kind of generic melody designed to soothe without being noticed. Welcome to First Republic Belmont. The greeter's smile is professional, automated. Her eyes perform the same assessment Crutcher's did, cataloging appearance, estimating worth, calculating how much attention this customer deserves. How may I assist you today? I would like to open an account. The request is simple. The process should be straightforward. In any normal bank, in any normal town, a customer with valid identification and sufficient funds to deposit would complete paperwork and walk out with account numbers within the hour. Belmont County is not normal. The next few minutes will shock you. Make sure you hit that like button, because this story is about to take a turn no one saw coming. 20 minutes later, She sits in an office with frosted glass walls and a nameplate reading L. Crutcher, Branch Manager. Leland has returned, settling behind his desk with the air of a man conducting an interview he has already decided to fail. "I apologize for the delay, miss." He glances at the application. "Ashford Tate. We take our verification processes very seriously here at First Republic. I provided 2 forms of government identification, proof of address, and a deposit well above your minimum requirements." "Yes? Well," he shuffles papers without actually reading them. "There appears to be a flag on your application." "A flag?" "Recent interaction with law enforcement." His smile curls at the edges. "Standard procedure." The irony is almost elegant. The same law enforcement interaction that violated her rights is now being used to deny her financial services. The system feeding itself, each injustice reinforcing the next. Per Federal Reserve Regulation E, financial institutions cannot deny services based solely on non-conviction police contact. Crutcher's smile tightens. The second legal citation in as many days. The pattern is becoming uncomfortable. "I said additional review, Miss Ashford Tate, not denial." He sets down the papers with exaggerated care. Yet, the office door opens behind her. She does not turn, but the reflection in the window glass reveals the visitor. A man in his 60s, wearing a suit that probably cost more than the average Belmont resident earns in 3 months. His face appears regularly on campaign signs and local news broadcasts. Mayor Orson Whitwell. "Trouble, Leland?" "Nothing we cannot handle, Orson." The mayor circles into view, settling into the chair beside Crutcher's desk like a man accustomed to inserting himself wherever he pleases. His eyes study her with the practiced warmth of a politician, surface charm masking deeper calculation. "New in town?" "Visiting." "Visiting." He repeats the word as if testing its flavor. "Word of advice, friend to friend. Belmont rewards those who fit in, who understand how things work here, who do not make waves." The smile never wavers. Those who cannot seem to understand those simple principles tend to find their visits uncomfortable. She meets his gaze without blinking. "I appreciate the advice." "I am sure you do." He rises, buttoning his jacket. "Leland, lunch tomorrow." "The club?" "Of course, Orson. I will have Marcus set up the usual table." The mayor exits with the casual confidence of a man who has never been told no. The door clicks shut behind him. Crutcher returns his attention to the application, red pen poised above the paper. "I believe we will need additional documentation before proceeding with your request. Tax returns for the past 3 years. Employment verification letters. References from your current financial institution." His pen makes small, precise marks as he speaks. "Standard procedure. For a checking account. For customers we do not know." The smile returns. "I am sure you understand." She rises from the chair, gathering her documents. The rejection is not unexpected. The obstacles are not insurmountable. Both are simply data points in a larger pattern, evidence accumulating like snowfall before an avalanche. "I will return with the documentation." "We look forward to it." The afternoon sun hangs heavy over Belmont as she drives toward the diner on Route 7. The establishment has not changed in 20 years. Same neon sign flickering above the entrance, same cracked asphalt in the parking lot, same bell that jingles when the door opens. Tobias Wren sits in the back booth, half hidden behind a newspaper that nobody reads anymore. His hair has gone gray, his face carved with lines that speak of decades spent chasing stories that powerful people wanted buried. But his eyes remain sharp, hungry, the eyes of a man who has never stopped believing, that truth matters. Vivian Ashford. He folds the paper as she slides into the seat across from him. I thought you disappeared for good. I came back. With questions, I imagine. With answers. She pulls a folder from her bag, setting it between them. And questions about the answers. Tobias opens the folder, scanning the contents with practiced speed. His expression shifts as he reads, surprise, giving way to something harder, sharper. Where did you get this? Sources. These are internal bank documents, transfer records, dates that match. His voice trails off. These dates match your father's case exactly. $2.4 million moved from First Republic Belmont to something called the Merriweather Family Trust between January and March of 2004. The same period as the asset seizure. The same period as the trial. The same period as the conviction. She leans forward slightly. The same period as everything that destroyed my family. Tobias sets down the documents, his hand trembling slightly, not from fear, from excitement. The excitement of a hunter who has finally sighted prey he has been tracking for decades. This is dangerous, Vivian. These people do not play by rules. They do not face consequences. He stops, searching for words adequate to the warning. Questions about the Merriweathers can get you killed in this town. Literally. Then let us make sure we have enough evidence before they figure that out. The diner's ceiling fan rotates slowly overhead, stirring air that refuses to cool. A waitress refills coffee cups at the counter. A family argues quietly in a corner booth. Normal life continuing around them while they discuss matters that could shatter the foundations of an entire community. I never stopped investigating, Tobias admits, his voice dropping. After they drove me out, after they killed my stories, after they made sure no paper in 3 states would touch anything I wrote about Belmont, I kept digging, kept collecting, kept waiting for someone brave enough or crazy enough to use what I found. And now? And now you are here. His smile is grim. The question is why? Revenge? Justice? Something else? She considers the question. The honest answer is complicated, tangled in memories of a father wrongly imprisoned, a mother who died of grief, a childhood stolen by men who never faced consequences. Revenge and justice are not opposites. Sometimes they are the same thing, wearing different masks. Both, she says finally, and neither. I want the truth documented. I want the pattern exposed. I want the system that protected them held accountable. That is a tall order for one woman. I am not alone. She does not elaborate. The less Tobias knows about certain resources, certain allies, certain plans already in motion, the safer he remains. Journalists make excellent witnesses, but poor conspirators. Their instinct to publish often outpaces their patience for strategy. What do you need from me? Everything you have collected, every document, every interview, every dead end that might become a live one with the right key. Tobias studies her face, reading something there that makes him nod slowly. I have boxes, storage unit outside of town, decades of work that nobody wanted to see. He pulls out a pen, writing an address on a napkin. This gets you access. Be careful. They watch that place sometimes. They watch everything, not everything. His eyes glint with something like hope. They did not watch you come back. She takes the napkin, memorizing the address before folding it into her pocket. The exchange is complete. The alliance is formed. Another piece on the board, positioned for moves still to come. Evening falls over Belmont, with the gradual dimming of a candle flame. She checks into a motel on the outskirts of town, a place with flickering vacancy signs and rooms that smell of disinfectant and old cigarettes. The mattress sags. The curtains do not quite close. The lock on the door would not stop a determined child, let alone determined enemies. She does not unpack. Instead, she reviews. The documents spread across the bed tell a story of coordinated theft disguised as legal process. Bank transfers that preceded indictments. Asset seizures that prevented defense. A trial rushed through before accountants could examine discrepancies. A man convicted on evidence that should have exonerated him. Her father spent 15 years in federal prison for crimes committed by the men who put him there. He died 8 months before his scheduled release. The official cause was heart failure. Natural causes. The quiet ending of a broken man. But there are other documents. Documents that arrived anonymously over the years, postmarked from Belmont, but bearing no return address. Documents that suggest the ending was not natural at all. She pulls out the most recent envelope, received 6 months ago. Inside, a single page. A toxicology report with a name whited out, but a date that matches exactly. The day her father died. Arsenic levels, 3.2 milligrams per liter. Lethal range. She has read this report 100 times. She has consulted experts who confirmed what the numbers mean. She has built a case in her mind that she cannot yet prove in court. Her father did not die of heart failure. Her father was murdered. And the man who ordered it now wears his watch as a trophy. A knock at the motel door shatters the silence. She does not startle. Instead, she gathers the documents with swift efficiency, sliding them into the hidden compartment of her suitcase designed for exactly this purpose. The knock comes again, harder this time. Open up. The voice is familiar, angry, slightly slurred. She checks the peephole. Colton Merriweather stands in the parking lot with 2 other men in civilian clothes. Off-duty officers, no uniforms, no official justification for their presence. "We know you are in there, Miss Ashford Tate. We just want to talk." She does not open the door. Interesting approach to conversation, Sergeant. 3 men outside a woman's motel room after dark. Most people would call that intimidation. Most people are not stirring up trouble in my town. She moves away from the door, positioning herself near the window, calculating exits. The bathroom has a window large enough to squeeze through. The parking lot behind the motel connects to a side street. If necessary, she can disappear before they break down the door. If necessary. Your town. She lets the words carry through the thin walls. Interesting way to describe a place you swore to serve and protect, not own. Footsteps shuffle outside. Muttered conversation she cannot quite hear. Then Colton's voice again, closer now, almost pressed against the door. "Why did you come back, Vivian?" The use of her first name lands differently than before. Not mocking this time. Almost pained. "You know who I am. I figured it out. After you left the station. The name. The face." A long pause. "You look different. 20 years will do that. I looked for you. After." His voice drops. "After everything. I tried to find out where you went. Not hard enough." Silence stretches between them, filled with decades of unspoken words. "Why did you come back, Viv?" The nickname, the one he used when they were children. When he was the boy who threw rocks at bullies for her. when she was the girl who believed friendship meant something in Belmont County. Do not call me that. Her voice hardens. You lost that right 20 years ago. I was 18. I was scared. I did not know what my father... You stood there. The memory surfaces raw and unhealed. The night they took my father, you stood at your gate and watched them drag him away. You said nothing. You did nothing. You closed the gate in my face when I begged you for help. I know. You became exactly like him. I know. The admission hangs in the air between them, not a defense, not an excuse, just acknowledgement of a truth that cannot be unsaid. Go home, Colton. Go home and think about what your family built on the ashes of mine. Think about every person you have stopped, every door you have kicked in, every life you have damaged following your father's playbook. She moves toward the window, preparing for exit if needed. And think about what happens when the truth finally comes out. Footsteps retreat across the parking lot. Car doors slam. Engines start. Headlights sweep across the motel facade before disappearing down the road. She waits 10 minutes before checking the parking lot. Empty. But sleep does not come. Instead, she sits by the window, watching the road, thinking about boys who become monsters, about systems that corrupt from within, about revenge and justice, and the thin line between them. Dawn finds her already dressed, already packed, already reviewing plans for the day ahead. The Internal Affairs office opens at 8:30 a.m. She arrives at 8:29. The officer behind the desk is middle-aged, tired in the particular way of bureaucrats who have seen too many complaints go nowhere. He takes her paperwork without enthusiasm, scanning the forms with eyes that barely register the words. You want to file a complaint against Sergeant Colton Merriweather and former Sheriff Harlan Merriweather, who was present during the illegal detention, and the department generally, for pattern of civil rights violations. The officer sets down the forms. Ma'am, I will be honest with you. His voice carries the exhaustion of repeated defeats. Complaints against the Merriweathers tend to get lost. Files disappear. Witnesses reconsider. Evidence develops problems. Then I will file with the state. And if that fails, federal. Something shifts in his expression, a flicker of attention where there was none before. You said your name was Ashford Tate. The officer studies her more carefully now. His fingers tap against the desk in a rhythm she cannot decode. The state office number is on that card, Miss Ashford Tate. He slides a business card across the desk. Use it. Subscribe now if you want to see how this story unfolds, because the next revelation will change everything you thought you knew about Belmont County. She takes the card, noting the way his eyes follow her to the door. He knows something, recognizes something. Whether from her father's case or from more recent attention, she cannot tell. Outside, the morning has turned hazy, humidity pressing down like a wet blanket. She walks to her car, already planning the next steps: state complaint, federal notification, documentation requests under the Freedom of Information Act. The rental sedan sits where she left it, but something is different. The driver's side door hangs slightly open. She approaches cautiously, scanning the parking lot for observers. Empty. She checks the interior without entering. The glove compartment has been opened and clumsily reclosed. The trunk release has been triggered. The center console drawer sits slightly askew. They searched it. Again. She opens the trunk. Her suitcase remains, but the zipper sits at a different position than she left it. The hidden compartment is intact. They did not find it, but they looked. The laptop she left on the back seat is gone. She does not panic. The laptop contained nothing of value. Its most sensitive function was providing a decoy, something to take, something to believe they had won. The real files live on a USB drive she carries in a compartment sewn into the sole of her shoe. The real communications route through encrypted channels they cannot access. But the message is clear. They are watching. They are worried. They should be. The afternoon brings a phone call from Tobias. His voice carries urgency wrapped in careful words. The storage unit. Someone visited last night. Broke the lock. Went through everything. Anything missing? Hard to tell. The boxes are disturbed, but I did not keep the most important material there. Where? Safer not to say on the phone. Meet me tonight. Same place. The diner. 8 p.m. She confirms and disconnects. The search of the storage unit means they know Tobias is involved. The theft of the laptop means they know she is gathering evidence. The visit to her motel means they know she is not backing down. All of this is expected. All of this confirms she is on the right track. The day passes in research and reconnaissance. She drives past the courthouse, noting security cameras and entrance protocols. She observes the police station shift changes, timing when the building is most and least staffed. She maps the routes between key locations, calculating distances and response times. Evidence gathering requires opportunity. Opportunity requires understanding patterns. Patterns reveal vulnerabilities. By evening, she has a clearer picture of Belmont's power structure and its weak points. The county operates on relationships forged over generations, loyalties bought with favors and enforced with threats. But relationships are fragile things. Loyalties can shift when the cost of maintaining them rises high enough. Someone sent those anonymous documents over the years. Someone inside the system who knew what the Merriweathers were doing and could not live with the silence. Someone who might be ready to talk. The diner is quiet when she arrives at 8. Tobias waits in the same booth, a manila envelope thick with documents sitting on the table between them. I moved the sensitive material years ago, he explains. After the first break-in, figured they would try again eventually. She opens the envelope, scanning pages that detail 2 decades of suspicious activity. Property transfers at below market prices. Contracts awarded without competitive bidding. Criminal cases dismissed with unexplained timing. A pattern of corruption so pervasive it has become invisible, mistaken for normal because normal is all Belmont has ever known. This is extensive and incomplete. There are connections I could never prove, money that disappeared into accounts I could not access, witnesses who died or moved away before I could interview them. Tobias leans forward. But there is one thread I never pulled hard enough, one name that kept appearing in the margins. Who? Eugenia Merriweather. The name surprises her. Harlan's wife, Colton's mother, the silent woman who stood at the edge of every public event, smiling without warmth, present without participating. What about her? She has been sending letters to families affected by her husband's actions. Anonymous letters containing information no one outside the inner circle should have. Tobias slides another document across the table. I traced one back to her 3 years ago, never confronted her directly. Too dangerous. She is dying. Tobias's eyebrows rise. How do you know? I know. The knowledge comes from sources she cannot reveal. Federal databases, medical records accessed through channels that exist for investigations exactly like this one. Eugenia Merriweather has stage 4 cancer. Months to live. Perhaps weeks. The timeline explains the accelerating letters. the increasing risks she has taken to get information out. A dying woman with a guilty conscience is a powerful ally. She knows where the bodies are buried, Tobias continues, literally and figuratively. 40 years of marriage to Harlan Merriweather means 40 years of secrets. Then I need to talk to her. That is extremely dangerous. So is everything else I am doing. The conversation continues until the diner closes. They coordinate plans, share contacts, establish secure communication channels for the work ahead. When they finally part ways, the parking lot sits empty, except for their 2 vehicles and the endless song of cicadas. She drives back to the motel with one eye on the rearview mirror. No one follows, not visibly. But that means nothing in a town where the walls have ears, and the ears belong to families who have ruled for generations. The motel room shows no signs of entry. She checks anyway. Every corner, every surface, every possible hiding place for surveillance devices. The sweep comes up clean, but clean means nothing when technology improves faster than countermeasures. She sleeps with one hand on the phone. Morning brings a new development. An envelope sits under her door when she wakes. No stamp, no postmark. Hand-delivered sometime in the night. Inside, a single note in elegant handwriting. I have been watching you since you arrived. I sent those letters for 20 years. Come to 47 Magnolia Lane, alone. E.M. Eugenia Merriweather. The dying woman with the guilty conscience has made her move. The house at 47 Magnolia Lane sits at the edge of town, set back from the road behind overgrown hedges that once were carefully maintained. The paint on the shutters has begun to peel. The garden shows signs of neglect. A wheelchair ramp leads to the front door, recently installed. The wood still pale and unweathered. She parks at the curb and approaches on foot. Senses alert for any sign of ambush. The morning is quiet. Birds call from distant trees. A dog barks somewhere blocks away. Normal sounds. Normal day. Except nothing about this is normal. The door opens before she can knock. A woman in nurse's scrubs gestures her inside without speaking. The interior is dim, curtains drawn against the sun, the air thick with the particular stillness of a house, preparing for death. Eugenia Merriweather sits in a wheelchair near the back window, oxygen tubes feeding her nose, blankets draped across legs that no longer support her weight. She was beautiful once. Traces remain in the bone structure, the elegant hands, the eyes that still carry intelligence despite the body's decline. You look like your mother. The voice is thin, papery, barely above a whisper. People have told me that. She was kind to me once, before everything. Eugenia's hand trembles as she gestures toward a chair. Sit. We do not have much time. I never do anymore. The chair creaks as she settles into it. The nurse withdraws to another room, leaving them alone with decades of unspoken truths. Why did you send those letters? Because I watched my husband destroy your family. A cough interrupts the words, wet and rattling. And I was too weak to stop him. You could have testified, gone to authorities, done something that mattered. He would have killed me. No drama in the statement. Simple fact. He has killed before. People who threatened him. People who knew too much. People who became inconvenient. Her eyes find the window, staring at something invisible beyond the glass. I stayed quiet because I was afraid. I sent letters because guilt demands some outlet, even when courage fails. The admission hangs between them, bitter truth spoken without plea for forgiveness. What do you know about my father's death? Eugenia's hand reaches for a box beside her chair. The movement is slow, painful, but she manages to lift it onto her lap. Everything. She opens the lid with trembling fingers. Everything Harlan tried to hide. Inside, documents, photographs, recordings on aging tape. A lifetime of secrets preserved against the day when someone would finally come to claim them. Including what really happened in that prison. The words land like a blow. Tell me. Eugenia pulls out a bound journal, its pages yellowed, its spine cracked from years of hidden reading. March 17th, 2019. The night your father died. She opens to a marked page. Harlan came home late, hands shaking. He said, "It is done. Ashford will not talk to anyone now." I asked what he meant. He showed me the coroner's report. Heart failure. Natural causes. Her voice drops to barely audible. But there was another report underneath. Toxicology. Arsenic levels elevated. He paid someone to switch the files. The confirmation of what she has long suspected does not bring relief. It brings something colder, harder, a crystal of rage forming in her chest, where grief once lived. He murdered him. He had him murdered. The distinction matters in court. Eugenia closes the journal. There is more. Financial records, communication logs, names of everyone involved in destroying your family. Evidence that would bring down not just Harlan, but half the power structure of this county. She reaches for the box, but Eugenia's hand stops her. Take it all. Use it. But understand, Ratan, what you are starting. The dying woman's grip is surprisingly strong. These people do not surrender. They do not negotiate. They destroy anything that threatens them. Your father learned that. I learned that. You will learn it too before this is over. I already know. Eugenia studies her face, searching for something. Whatever she finds seems to satisfy her. Then finish it. For your father, for your mother, for everyone they crush at to build their empire. A final cough shakes her frame. And for me, for the coward who knew and stayed silent. The box weighs heavy as she carries it to the car. The contents represent 2 decades of evidence, carefully preserved by a woman who lacked courage but not conscience. Financial records that trace money from victim families to Merriweather accounts. Recordings of conversations that incriminate judges, prosecutors, police officials. Photographs of meetings that were never supposed to be documented. And the toxicology report, the proof that her father was murdered. She sits in the parked car, hands trembling for the first time since arriving in Belmont. Not from fear, from the weight of confirmation. Suspicion has become certainty. Theory has become fact. Her phone buzzes. A text from Tobias. Something happening at the station. Multiple units mobilizing. Be careful. She starts the engine and pulls away from Magnolia Lane. Whatever is happening, she needs to see it. The police station parking lot is chaos when she arrives. Patrol cars sit at angles, suggesting hasty departure. Officers cluster near the entrance, speaking in urgent tones. A television news van idles at the curb, camera crew setting up for broadcast. She parks across the street, watching from a distance. Colton Merriweather emerges from the building, uniform crisp, face pale. He speaks briefly with another officer, then moves toward a waiting patrol car. His movements carry tension, the controlled energy of a man facing something unexpected. Their eyes meet across the parking lot. For a moment, the chaos fades. 20 years collapse into nothing. The boy and the girl they once were stand ghost-like between the adults they have become. Then Colton looks away. His car pulls out of the lot, heading north toward the highway. Something has happened. Something significant enough to mobilize officers and attract media. Something that has rattled the certainty she saw in Colton's face just yesterday. Her phone buzzes again. Unknown number. She answers. Miss Ashford Tate. The voice is female, familiar from somewhere she cannot immediately place. We need to talk. Somewhere private. Who is this? Someone who wants what you want. Justice for people the system failed. The caller provides an address, a diner outside county lines, 30 minutes away. She memorizes it without writing it down. 1 hour, the voice says. Come alone, and bring what Eugenia gave you. The line goes dead. The drive takes her through countryside that grows greener as she leaves Belmont behind. Rolling hills, farm fields, small towns where the Merriweather name means nothing, and tradition has not calcified into tyranny. The diner sits at a crossroads, unremarkable except for its distance from any jurisdiction where powerful enemies hold sway. She parks and waits, scanning the lot for surveillance, for threats, for any sign this is a trap rather than an opportunity. A woman enters through the back door. Deputy uniform, badge still attached. Face she recognizes from the gas station stop. Ramona Vickers. The deputy slides into the booth across from her, checking the windows before speaking. We need to talk about what you are doing in Belmont. I assume the department sent you. The department does not know I am here. Vickers pulls out a badge wallet and opens it on the table. The shield inside is not county issue, not state, federal, FBI. My real name is not important. What matters is that I have been undercover in the Belmont Sheriff's Department for 3 years, building a case against the Merriweathers and their network. The revelation shifts everything. Alley, where she expected enemy. Federal interest, where she assumed only local corruption. Why tell me now? Because you just got access to Eugenia's files. Because you have resources I need. And because... Vickers leans forward, lowering her voice. I know who you really are, Your Honor. The title lands like a thunderbolt. Your Honor, Judge Vivian Ashford Tate, Federal District Court, Northern District of Georgia. Assigned to financial crimes and civil rights cases. Vickers does not blink. I did my homework before approaching you. The careful anonymity she has maintained dissolves in an instant. If FBI undercover knows her identity, others might as well. The risk calculus changes entirely. Then you know I cannot be directly involved in any prosecution. But you can be a witness, and you can preside over the civil rights hearing. Different case, different defendants, clean jurisdictional lines. Vickers explains, the FBI has been building parallel cases against the Merriweather network. Financial crimes, civil rights violations, corruption, murder. The investigation spans years and involves multiple agencies. Vivian's arrival, her personal stake, her access to Eugenia's evidence accelerates a timeline that was already moving toward confrontation. What happened at the station this morning? Warrant execution. Federal agents seized computers from 2 departments. The Merriweathers are scrambling. Vickers allows herself a small smile. Your visit rattled them more than you know. They have been making mistakes, sloppy ones, the kind that leave trails. The conversation continues for an hour. Information exchanged, plans coordinated, resources aligned toward a common goal. When they finally part, the sun has begun its descent toward evening. She drives back toward Belmont, with the weight of new knowledge pressing against her thoughts. The box of Eugenia's evidence sits in her trunk. The identity she has protected is now known to federal investigators. The confrontation she has been building toward accelerates with each passing hour. The motel room feels smaller when she returns, more confined, more watched. She secures Eugenia's documents in multiple locations. Original files in a safety deposit box at a bank outside county lines. Copies mailed to trusted contacts with instructions for release if she disappears. Digital scans uploaded to encrypted cloud storage that the Merriweathers cannot touch. The evidence is protected. She is not. But that was always the calculation. Night falls over Belmont County, thick with humidity and the electric tension of gathering storms. The sky flickers with distant lightning, thunder rolling across the hills like the footsteps of approaching judgment. She stands at the window of her motel room, watching the play of light and shadow across the parking lot. Tomorrow brings the next phase: administrative hearings, public testimony, evidence introduced into official records where it cannot be buried. Tomorrow, Belmont County begins to learn what happens when the people it crushed come back to demand an accounting. The thunder grows closer. She does not sleep. She plans. The morning arrives heavy with humidity, clouds pressing down on Belmont County like a verdict waiting to be delivered. She has not slept. The hours passed in review and preparation, documents organized, strategies refined, contingencies mapped for every possible response. The box from Eugenia sits open on the motel bed, its contents now cataloged, copied, and distributed across multiple secure locations. Her phone buzzes at 6:47 a.m. Vickers. Federal team is standing by. They will move immediately after the hearing concludes. Whatever happens in that courtroom today determines the scope of the warrants. Understood. One more thing. Vickers pauses. Colton Merriweather filed a motion this morning. He is requesting to testify. Voluntarily. The information settles into her calculations. Colton offering testimony before knowing what evidence exists, before understanding how deep the exposure runs. Either an act of conscience or a desperate attempt to get ahead of revelations he senses are coming. Has he seen Eugenia's documents? No, but he visited her house 2 days ago. The nurse confirmed it. He left carrying nothing, but they talked for over an hour. Eugenia, dying but not silent, planting seeds of doubt in her own son before the harvest arrives. I will see him in the hearing. The Belmont County Courthouse occupies the center of town, Greek revival columns standing watch over a century and a half of justice dispensed unevenly. The parking lot fills early, unusual for a civil rights hearing in a county that typically ignores such proceedings. News vans line the street. Citizens cluster on the steps, some carrying signs, others simply watching with the wary attention of people who sense something significant approaching. She enters through the back entrance reserved for judicial officers, credentials verified at 3 checkpoints before reaching the robing room. The black judicial robe hangs waiting, pressed and immaculate. She touches the fabric, feeling its weight, understanding what it represents. 20 years ago, she fled this county with nothing but grief and determination. Today, she returns wearing the authority of federal law, prepared to render judgment on the system that destroyed her family. The hearing is scheduled for 9 a.m. At 8:45, she reviews the defendant list one final time. Sergeant Colton Merriweather, charged with civil rights violations under 18 United States Code, Section 242. Deputy Marcus Webb, same charges. Deputy Thomas Crane, same charges. Former Sheriff Harlan Merriweather, listed as a material witness, subpoenaed to testify regarding departmental policies and practices. The inclusion of Harlan required careful legal maneuvering. He is not a defendant in this civil proceeding, the criminal charges against him still under seal pending the hearing's outcome. But his presence is mandatory, his testimony relevant to establishing the pattern of conduct that enabled the violations. He will sit in that courtroom today. He will watch his son face judgment. He will hear evidence that exposes decades of corruption. And he will see her. The thought carries satisfaction she does not try to suppress. 20 years of waiting. 20 years of preparation. Today, the scales begin to balance. At 8:55, she receives word that all parties have assembled. The courtroom is full. Media occupies designated seats. Citizens fill the gallery to capacity, with overflow watching via closed-circuit feed in an adjacent room. She takes a breath, adjusts her robe, opens the door. The courtroom falls silent as she enters through the judicial chambers. Heads turn. Conversations cease. Every eye tracks her movement toward the bench, taking in the black robe, the composed expression, the deliberate pace of someone who belongs exactly where she is. She does not look at the defendant's table. Not yet. "All rise," the bailiff announces, voice echoing off marble walls. "The United States District Court for the Northern District of Georgia is now in session. The Honorable Judge Vivienne Ashford Tate, presiding." The name lands like a thunderclap. Ashford. In the gallery, Harlan Merriweather's head snaps up. His face, already weathered by decades of wielding power, drains of color. His eyes fix on the bench, on the woman settling into the judge's chair, recognition and disbelief warring across his features. At the defendant's table, Colton sits rigid. His attorney whispers something urgent, but Colton does not respond. His gaze has locked onto the judge's face, searching for something he clearly thought he would never see again. She allows herself one moment, one brief meeting of eyes with the man who once protected her and then watched silently as his family destroyed hers. Then she speaks. "I believe there has been a procedural error." Her voice carries across the chamber, steady and clear. This hearing requires a presiding judicial officer with appropriate federal jurisdiction. I am here to fulfill that role. Colton's lips move. No sound emerges. But she can read the word forming on them. Viv. This court will come to order. She breaks eye contact, turning to address the full chamber. "We are here to address civil rights violations alleged to have occurred on September 14th of this year, involving the unlawful detention and arrest of the complainant by officers of the Belmont County Sheriff's Department." Harlan rises from his seat in the gallery. "Objection! This judge has a clear conflict of interest. Her family history with this county disqualifies her from presiding." "You are not an attorney of record in this proceeding, Mr. Merriweather." Her voice does not waver. "You are a subpoenaed witness. Sit down or be removed for contempt." "This is outrageous. You cannot possibly." "Bailiff." One word. The officer moves toward Harlan with practiced efficiency. Harlan sits. But his eyes burn with fury that promises this confrontation is far from over. The prosecution presents its opening statement with methodical precision. The facts are stark. A woman stopped without probable cause, searched without warrant, detained without charges, subjected to racial slurs documented on body cam footage. The violations are not subtle. They are not ambiguous. They are the systematic abuse of power by officers who believe themselves untouchable. Then comes the evidence. The court will now review Exhibit A. She maintains judicial neutrality in her tone, though every word carries personal weight. Complete body cam transcript from the date in question. The footage plays on screens visible throughout the courtroom. Timestamp 1447. First contact. No probable cause stated. No warrant presented. No charges articulated. The audio captures every word. Step away from the vehicle. Hands where I can see them. These people always have some excuse. Documents can be forged. You people. Each phrase echoes in the silent courtroom. Colton watches himself on screen, watches his casual cruelty documented in high definition. His face has gone pale, jaw clenched so tight the muscles twitch visibly. Exhibit B. She continues without pause. Financial records subpoenaed from First Republic Bank of Belmont. The documents appear on screen. Wire transfers, account numbers, dates that align precisely with specific events. These records demonstrate transfers totaling $7.2 million from First Republic to an entity called the Merriweather Family Trust, spanning the years 2004 through 2024. The transfers correlate with numerous civil and criminal cases in which defendants were coerced into plea agreements or had assets seized under questionable circumstances. Murmurs ripple through the gallery. The scope of the evidence extends far beyond one traffic stop. The pattern emerges clearly: systematic exploitation, financial benefit flowing to a single family, justice corrupted for profit. Exhibit C: internal communications between bank management and law enforcement officials. Email chains scroll across the screens. Messages that were never meant to see daylight. From L. Crutcher at First Republic to H. Merriweather, personal account. Subject line: Ashford Matter. Date: March 3, 2004. She reads aloud, letting each word land. Quote, "Transfer complete. Paper trail erased. Recommend expediting trial before accountant reviews books." End quote. The gallery erupts. Voices rise in shock, in outrage, in the particular fury of people who have long suspected what is now confirmed. The bailiff calls for order. She waits, letting the chaos settle, letting the implications sink into every witness present. Harlan Merriweather has gone rigid in his seat. His attorney whispers urgently, but Harlan's attention remains fixed on the screen, on the words that document his corruption in his own associate's hand. Exhibit D. The courtroom stills. Something in her tone signals that the worst is yet to come. Toxicology report from the death of Raymond Ashford, federal prisoner, dated March 17, 2019. She pauses, letting the name register. Raymond Ashford. Her father. The man Harlan Merriweather destroyed. The official cause of death was recorded as heart failure. Natural causes. However, the court has obtained a suppressed toxicology report that was deliberately excluded from official records. The document appears on screen. Numbers that tell a story of murder. Arsenic levels: 3.2 milligrams per liter. This concentration falls within the lethal range. The original coroner's report documenting these findings was replaced with a falsified version attributing death to natural causes. If you are watching this unfold, hit that subscribe button right now, because the next revelation will shake this courtroom to its foundation. The silence that follows is absolute. Every breath seems suspended. Every eye fixed on the evidence that transforms a civil rights hearing into something far more devastating. Raymond Ashford did not die of heart failure. Her voice carries the weight of 20 years of grief, controlled but unmistakable. Raymond Ashford was murdered, and the evidence trail leads directly to individuals present in this courtroom. Harlan lunges to his feet. This is a farce. This entire proceeding is nothing but a personal vendetta dressed in judicial robes. That woman, he points at her, finger trembling with rage, has fabricated evidence to destroy my family because she could not accept that her father was a criminal. Mr. Merriweather, her voice cuts through his tirade like a blade. You are not a party to this hearing. You have been warned once. Sit down or be removed. I will not sit down while you railroad my son with lies and, bailiff, remove Mr. Merriweather to the holding area. He will remain there until called to testify. Two officers approach Harlan. He resists for a moment, face contorted with fury, before his attorney's urgent whispers convince him to comply. The courtroom watches as the former sheriff of Belmont County is escorted out, his power crumbling with each step toward the door. Colton remains at the defendant's table. His eyes have not left his father's retreating form. When the door closes, he turns slowly back toward the bench. Permission to approach, Your Honor. His attorney grabs his arm, whispering frantically. Colton shakes him off. Permission to approach. She considers. The request is irregular. The timing is dramatic. But the evidence has created a moment that demands response. Approach. Colton rises and walks toward the bench. His steps are unsteady, the confidence she remembers from the gas station entirely absent. He stops at the appropriate distance, looking up at her with an expression she cannot entirely read. Is it true? The question is barely audible, meant for her alone. But in the silent courtroom, every word carries. Is what true, Sergeant Merriweather? The toxicology report, the money, the Ashfords. His voice cracks slightly. All of it. Is it true? She holds his gaze for a long moment. The boy who threw rocks at bullies to protect her. The man who stood silent while his family destroyed hers. The officer who arrested her without cause just weeks ago. All of these versions exist simultaneously in the figure before her. The evidence speaks for itself. My father, Colton's hands clench at his sides. Did my father murder Raymond Ashford? That determination will be made by the appropriate criminal court. This hearing addresses civil rights violations. I need to know. His voice rises, desperation breaking through professional restraint. I need to know if everything I believed about my family, about my career, about this town. I need to know if it was all built on murder. The courtroom holds its breath. The evidence strongly suggests that Raymond Ashford was poisoned while in federal custody, and that the responsible parties had connections to your family's financial network. She speaks carefully, judicially, but the personal weight beneath the words is unmistakable. Whether that evidence constitutes proof beyond reasonable doubt will be determined in criminal proceedings. Colton stands motionless for several seconds. Then, slowly, he turns to face the gallery. His eyes find his father's empty seat, then move to the faces of neighbors, colleagues, citizens who have watched the Merriweather family rule this county for generations. I want to testify. His attorney surges forward. Colton, I strongly advise against. I want to testify. Colton's voice has steadied, decision crystallizing into determination. Under oath, against my father, against the department, against everyone who was involved in this. The offer hangs in the air, a son turning against his father, a law enforcement officer exposing his own department. The testimony will be devastating, not because it reveals new facts, but because it comes from inside the family, from someone who can speak to knowledge and intent in ways no outside witness can. The court will consider the defendant's request during recess. She maintains judicial composure, though the significance of the moment is not lost on anyone present. This hearing will resume at 1 p.m. Court is adjourned. The gavel falls. The chamber erupts into chaos as she withdraws to her chambers. Reporters shout questions. Attorneys huddle with clients. Citizens debate what they have witnessed in voices that carry shock, vindication, and the particular energy of people watching power finally face accountability. In her chambers, she allows herself 1 minute. 1 minute to process what has happened. 1 minute to acknowledge that 20 years of planning have brought her to this moment. Then she returns to work. The afternoon session convenes to a courtroom even more crowded than the morning. Word has spread. The parking lot overflow has become a gathering on the courthouse lawn. Local news has been joined by state and national outlets, cameras capturing what everyone senses is a historic moment. Colton takes the witness stand. The oath is administered. His right hand rises. His voice, when he speaks, carries the particular weight of a man dismantling everything he once believed. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. The prosecution begins. Questions about training, questions about procedures, questions about the patterns of enforcement that targeted certain communities while protecting others. Colton answers each one. His testimony confirms what the documents suggest. A department shaped by decades of corrupt leadership, where officers learned early that certain families were untouchable and certain citizens were targets. Were you aware of financial arrangements between the sheriff's department and local businesses? I became aware over time. Certain cases were handled differently. Certain charges disappeared. Certain families never faced consequences, while others faced maximum penalties for minor offenses. Did you participate in these arrangements? I followed orders I should have questioned. I made arrests I knew were questionable. I wrote reports that emphasized details favorable to certain outcomes. His voice tightens. I told myself I was doing my job. I told myself the system knew things I did not. I was wrong. The testimony continues for 2 hours. Each answer peels back another layer of corruption. Each admission builds the case against the department and its leadership. Then comes the question everyone has waited for. Sergeant Merriweather, do you have knowledge of your father's involvement in the death of Raymond Ashford? The courtroom stills. Colton's face works through emotions he cannot hide. Grief. Shame. The particular anguish of a son confronting his father's capacity for evil. 2 days ago, I visited my mother. She is dying. Cancer. She wanted to tell me things before she passed. His voice drops. She showed me documents she had kept hidden for 20 years, financial records, communications, and a toxicology report that was supposed to have been destroyed. What did that report show? Arsenic poisoning, levels consistent with deliberate administration over time. Colton's hands grip the witness stand railing. My mother said my father arranged it, paid someone inside the prison, made sure Raymond Ashford would never talk about what really happened to his construction company, about the money that disappeared, about the evidence that was fabricated. Your father murdered Raymond Ashford? My father had him murdered. The distinction matters legally. Colton understands this. He told my mother it was necessary, that Ashford was going to appeal, that new lawyers were getting involved, that the whole thing might unravel if he lived long enough to tell his story. Gasps ripple through the gallery. Tears stream down faces of people who knew Raymond Ashford, who always believed his conviction was wrong, who now hear confirmation of their worst suspicions. No further questions. The defense declines to cross-examine. What could they ask? Every question would only deepen the damage. She dismisses the witness. Colton returns to the defendant's table, but something has changed. He no longer sits like a man facing judgment. He sits like a man who has already rendered judgment on himself and found himself guilty. This court will now hear testimony from the subpoenaed witness, Harlan Merriweather. The bailiff retrieves Harlan from the holding area. He enters the courtroom with diminished swagger, the morning's fury replaced by something more calculated. His attorney has clearly counseled restraint. His face wears a mask of injured dignity. The oath is administered. Harlan's hand rises with the practiced ease of a man who has testified many times, always from a position of power, never as the subject of investigation. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. The words carry contempt, poorly disguised as cooperation. The prosecution begins with financial questions, the Merriweather Family Trust, the transfers from First Republic, the correlation between specific cases and specific deposits. Harlan deflects. He was not personally involved in financial management. His wife handled those matters. The trust was established for estate planning purposes. The timing of transfers was coincidental. Then comes the question that cuts through the deflection. Mr. Merriweather, did you arrange the murder of Raymond Ashford? Absolutely not. The denial is immediate, forceful. That accusation is slander, pure and simple. Raymond Ashford was a convicted felon who died of natural causes while serving a legitimate sentence for crimes he committed. Crimes he committed, or crimes you fabricated? Objection. Harlan's attorney rises. The witness is not on trial here. The witness's credibility is directly relevant to this hearing. The prosecution counters. His testimony about departmental practices cannot be evaluated without understanding his personal involvement in past misconduct. She considers. The objection has merit, but so does the prosecution's argument. The balance tips toward allowing the question. Overruled. The witness will answer. Harlan's jaw tightens. Raymond Ashford was convicted by a jury of his peers based on evidence presented in open court. I had nothing to do with fabricating anything. Then how did you explain the email from Leland Crutcher referencing the Ashford matter and recommending that trial be expedited before accountants reviewed the books? I cannot speak to what Leland Crutcher wrote or why. The email was sent to your personal account, Mr. Merriweather. I receive many emails. I do not recall that specific communication. You do not recall an email discussing the transfer of millions of dollars connected to a case you personally supervised? I supervised many cases. I cannot recall details of every communication. The prosecution shifts tactics. Document after document appears on screen. Financial records. Communication logs. The paper trail of corruption that Eugenia preserved for exactly this moment. Harlan denies, deflects, claims failures of memory that strain credulity. His performance might convince someone unfamiliar with the evidence. It convinces no one in this courtroom. Mr. Merriweather, I direct your attention to Exhibit E, a personal journal entry written by your wife dated March 17, 2019. The document appears on screen. Eugenia's handwriting, elegant even in its documentation of horror. The prosecution reads aloud. Harlan came home late, hands shaking. He said, "It is done. Ashford will not talk to anyone now." I asked what he meant. He showed me the coroner's report. Heart failure, natural causes, but there was another report underneath. Toxicology. Arsenic levels elevated. He paid someone to switch the files. The courtroom erupts. Harlan's face has gone gray. His attorney objects, citing hearsay, But the objection is hollow. The journal is not offered to prove the truth of its contents, but to establish what Harlan told his wife, what he admitted in the privacy of his own home. No further questions. Harlan stumbles from the witness stand. His attorney guides him back to his seat in the gallery, whispering urgently. But Harlan's eyes have gone distant. The calculation that always served him has failed. The power that always protected him has evaporated. Subscribe right now if you want to see justice finally delivered, because the next few minutes will change Belmont County forever. She takes a breath, surveys the courtroom, and prepares to render judgment. This court finds that the defendants violated the civil rights of the complainant under 18 United States Code, Section 242. The evidence demonstrates a pattern of conduct reflecting systematic disregard for constitutional protections. The words fall like hammer blows, each one driving another nail into the coffin of Belmont's corrupt regime. This court further finds that departmental policies and training contributed to an environment in which such violations were not merely possible, but predictable. Accordingly, in addition to individual penalties for the named defendants, this court orders the Belmont County Sheriff's Department to implement comprehensive reforms under federal oversight for a period of not less than 5 years. She details the requirements: mandatory bias training with external oversight, revised use of force protocols, civilian review board with subpoena power, body camera requirements with strict chain of custody procedures, regular audits of arrest patterns, and case outcomes. Finally, this court addresses the matter of Raymond Ashford, whose wrongful conviction in 2004 formed the context for the violations at issue in this hearing. The chamber stills. This was not part of the scheduled proceeding. This was not announced in advance. Every eye fixes on the bench. Evidence presented today demonstrates that Raymond Ashford was convicted on fabricated evidence, imprisoned on false charges, and died under circumstances that constitute murder. This court initiates proceedings for posthumous exoneration, to be completed within 60 days. Raymond Ashford's name will be cleared, his record will be expunged, his legacy will be restored. Tears stream down faces throughout the gallery. Citizens who knew Raymond Ashford, families who suffered similar fates, people who have waited generations to see justice delivered in Belmont County. This hearing is concluded. Court is adjourned. The gavel falls. What follows happens with the swift efficiency of plans long prepared. Federal agents enter the courthouse within minutes of adjournment. Warrants, sealed pending the hearing's outcome, are now executed. Harlan Merriweather is arrested before he can reach the exit, handcuffs closing around wrists that have never known restraint. The charges are read aloud for the benefit of cameras that capture every moment. Conspiracy to commit murder under Georgia Code Section 1651. Money laundering under 18, United States Code Section 1956. Obstruction of justice. Civil rights violations. Wire fraud. The list continues, each charge another stone in the wall being built around him. "You cannot do this," Harlan's voice cracks, the composed facade finally shattering. "Do you know who I am? Do you know what I built in this county?" "We know exactly what you built, Mr. Merriweather." SSA Deandra Polk steps forward, federal badge displayed. "That is why you are under arrest." Across town, simultaneous operations unfold. Leland Crutcher is apprehended at First Republic Bank, caught attempting to access files that have already been seized. His protestations of innocence die on his lips when agents display the email chain that documents his role in the conspiracy. Mayor Orson Whitwell receives federal agents at his office. The subpoena had been delivered the previous day, requiring his presence at the hearing. His failure to appear triggers immediate consequences. As agents escort him from City Hall, cameras capture the particular humiliation of a politician whose carefully cultivated image has collapsed in a single afternoon. Deputy Webb and Deputy Crane, already defendants in the civil proceeding, face additional criminal charges. Their cooperation is requested. Their attorneys advise compliance. The hierarchy of Belmont's corrupt system begins to devour itself as each level attempts to shift blame upward. She watches the chaos from her chambers, federal marshals posted outside her door as a precaution against the unpredictable. The satisfaction she feels is complex, layered with grief that justice arrived too late for her father, too late for her mother, too late for the life she might have lived if powerful men had not decided to destroy her family for profit. But satisfaction nonetheless. Evening falls over Belmont County with the weighted silence of a community processing trauma. The courthouse has emptied, reporters filing stories that will dominate news cycles for days. Citizens gather in small groups on sidewalks and porches, discussing what they witnessed, what they always suspected, what finally came to light. Vickers appears at her chamber door as the last light fades from the windows. It is done. All primary targets in custody. Warrants executed without incident. She pauses. Colton Merriweather has been processed separately. His cooperation is being factored into charging decisions. What happens to him? Suspension without pay pending review. The civil rights violations will likely result in termination and loss of certification. But criminal charges may be reduced given his testimony. Vickers studies her face. He asked to speak with you. No. He said he understood you might refuse. Good. The response is perhaps unfair. Colton's testimony was devastating, essential, the testimony of a man dismantling his own legacy to expose the truth. But fairness is not what she owes him. 20 years of silence cannot be erased by one afternoon of honesty. The night passes in coordination and documentation. Federal prosecutors prepare charging documents. State authorities establish jurisdiction over murder charges that must be prosecuted under Georgia law. Media requests pile up, unanswered for now, held at bay, while the machinery of justice continues grinding. Dawn brings news she expected, but still receives with complicated emotion. Eugenia Merriweather has died. The timing carries weight that some will call coincidence, and others will recognize as choice. A dying woman who held her secrets until they could do maximum damage, then released her grip on life once the work was complete. She sends flowers, white roses. The card reads, "She was braver than both of us. V." The following days bring cascading consequences that ripple outward from the hearing. First Republic Bank is placed under federal supervision, its records seized, its accounts frozen pending investigation of money laundering charges. The board of directors resigns en masse, their hasty departures captured by cameras stationed permanently outside the building. City Council convenes an emergency session to address the crisis. 3 members announce resignations before the meeting begins, their connections to the Merriweather network too extensive to survive scrutiny. The remaining council members vote to request Department of Justice oversight of all municipal operations, a voluntary surrender of local control that would have been unthinkable a week earlier. The Sheriff's Department begins the painful process of reform. The federal monitor arrives with a team of consultants, their presence a constant reminder that Belmont no longer controls its own law enforcement. Officers who served under Harlan Merriweather face review, their records examined for patterns of misconduct, their futures dependent on cooperation with investigations still expanding. And then, 4 days after the hearing, Mayor Orson Whitwell is found dead. The body is discovered in his office by cleaning staff arriving for their morning shift. The door was locked from inside. A note sits on the desk. 3 pages of handwritten confession and accusation. She receives the news from Vickers, who delivers it with the particular tone of someone recognizing that victory has become more complicated. Apparent suicide. Preliminary examination consistent with self-inflicted gunshot wound. The note? Being analyzed, but I can tell you what it says. Vickers pauses. He named names, people above him in the hierarchy, people who have not been indicted, people in Atlanta, people in Washington. The implications settle into her understanding. Whitwell was a link in a chain that extends beyond Belmont, beyond Georgia, into corridors of power that federal prosecutors approach carefully. Specific names. Most are redacted in the version being released to media. National security concerns, according to the Bureau. Vickers meets her eyes. But one passage is being made public. He wrote, "I was never the one in charge. Ask who was at the Magnolia Club dinner, December 1999. Ask who made the calls that protected Merriweather when investigations got too close." The Magnolia Club, December 1999. A reference that means nothing to most observers, but carries specific weight for those who know Belmont's history. Do we know who attended that dinner? The club's records from that period were destroyed in a fire in 2003. Convenient timing. Vickers produces a photograph. But Eugenia kept this among her documents. The image shows a gathering of men in formal attire, champagne glasses raised in celebration. Harlan Merriweather stands at the center, younger, confident, surrounded by faces that represent Belmont's power structure of that era, and one face she recognizes from contexts far beyond Belmont County. Senator Vernon Ashworth. The photograph sits in her hands like a live coal, burning with implications she cannot yet fully trace. A United States senator connected to the network that destroyed her family. A man whose current position might explain why certain investigations were never completed, why certain protections remained in place, why Belmont's corruption could flourish for decades without federal intervention. This needs to go to the appropriate authorities. It already has. Vickers takes back the photograph, but I wanted you to see it, to understand that what we accomplished this week may be the beginning rather than the end. Raymond Ashford's exoneration is finalized on a Thursday morning, 2 weeks after the hearing. The ceremony is small, held in the same courtroom where he was wrongly convicted 2 decades earlier. His photograph sits on a table near the bench, a reminder of the man whose life was stolen and whose name is finally cleared. She speaks briefly, words about justice delayed but not denied, words about the importance of truth even when it arrives too late to save the innocent, words that catch in her throat when she looks at her father's face, frozen in time, never knowing that vindication would eventually come. Colton attends. He sits in the back row, alone, separated from the community that once respected his family's name. His presence is not required. His presence is not entirely welcome. But he comes anyway, bearing witness to the restoration of a man his father destroyed. Afterward, he approaches her outside the courthouse. The afternoon sun catches the lines on his face, aging, that speaks of sleepless nights and relentless self-examination. I do not expect forgiveness. Good. But I wanted you to know that I am trying to understand, to accept responsibility, to figure out who I am without the lies I built my life on. She studies him for a long moment. The boy she once knew. The man she arrested. The witness who helped bring down his own father. Who are you, then? Without the lies? I do not know yet. His voice carries honesty she has rarely heard from him. Someone trying to deserve better than what he was given. Someone trying to give better than what he took. That would be a change. That is the point. He turns and walks away without waiting for response. She watches until he disappears around the corner, then returns to her car. The drive out of Belmont takes her past landmarks of transformation. The courthouse where justice finally arrived. The bank where federal auditors now review decades of fraud. The sheriff's department, where a new generation of officers learns procedures their predecessors ignored. At the county line, she stops. The Welcome to Belmont sign stands as it always has. Paint fading, history embedded in every crack and stain. But someone has added something new. A small plaque bolted to the post below the original sign, in memory of Raymond Ashford and all those wrongfully convicted. May justice prevail. She does not know who placed it, does not know if it will survive the politics still churning through county government. But its presence speaks to something changed, something broken open that cannot be fully closed again. The weeks that follow bring her back to Atlanta, to cases that demand attention, to the ordinary work of jurisprudence that continues regardless of personal victories. She reviews appeals, hears arguments, renders judgments on matters that have nothing to do with Belmont County. But Belmont is never far from her thoughts. Harlan Merriweather's trial is scheduled for spring. The evidence against him includes financial records, testimony from cooperating witnesses, and the toxicology report that proves he ordered Raymond Ashford's murder. His attorneys file motions to suppress, to delay, to transfer venue. Each motion is denied. The case proceeds. Leland Crutcher pleads guilty to reduced charges in exchange for full cooperation. His testimony implicates additional officials who are subsequently indicted. The dominoes continue falling, each one revealing connections to others. The Department of Justice announces a pattern or practice investigation into the Belmont County Sheriff's Department. The investigation will examine decades of conduct, interview hundreds of witnesses, review thousands of documents. It will take years to complete. But its announcement signals that federal attention will not fade once media interest moves elsewhere. And then, on a quiet evening 3 weeks after returning to Atlanta, her phone rings. Unknown number. Area code she does not recognize. Judge Ashford Tate. The voice is smooth, practiced, the cultivated warmth of someone accustomed to putting people at ease. Congratulations on your recent successes. I have been following your work with great interest. She recognizes the voice. Committee hearings, press conferences, campaign advertisements. A voice that belongs in Washington, not on her personal phone. Senator Ashworth, how did you get this number? I have resources. A chuckle designed to sound friendly, landing instead as warning. I wanted to reach out personally, to express my admiration for what you accomplished in Belmont. Cleaning up corruption is important work. Work I have always supported. I appreciate the acknowledgement. I also wanted to discuss the future. The warmth in his voice sharpened slightly. Your future specifically. A judge of your caliber, your background, your demonstrated commitment to justice. There are opportunities that might interest you. Appointments that require someone with exactly your qualifications. The offer hovers unspoken, but clear. Advancement in exchange for something. Silence. cooperation, the abandonment of questions that remain unanswered. That is generous, Senator, but I am content with my current position. Positions change. The sharpness is unmistakable now. Circumstances evolve. What seems satisfying today might feel limiting tomorrow. I hope we can talk again soon, perhaps over dinner. I will have my office reach out. The line goes dead. She stares at the phone for a long moment. The senator knows who she is, knows what she accomplished, knows that her investigation might eventually reach questions that implicate him. The photograph from Eugenia's documents sits in her secure files. Senator Vernon Ashworth, smiling in celebration, standing beside a man now awaiting trial for murder. December 1999. 25 years of connection that has never been examined, never been questioned, never been exposed. Until now. She opens her laptop and composes a secure message to Tobias Wren. I need you to look into something. Vernon Ashworth, United States Senator. Everything you can find about his connection to Belmont County and the Merriweathers. Start with December 1999. The Magnolia Club. The response arrives within minutes. That is dangerous territory. He has resources we cannot match, protection that extends to places we cannot reach. I know. And you want to investigate him anyway. I want the truth. She closes the laptop and looks out the window at Atlanta's glittering skyline. Whatever the truth costs, the story of Belmont County is not finished. The empire has fallen. The criminals face justice. The reforms proceed under federal supervision. But the roots run deeper than one county, one family, one network of corrupt officials. The roots reach into soil that has nourished power for generations, soil that will not be purified by a single investigation or a single trial. Harlan Merriweather awaits judgment in a federal detention facility, his wealth frozen, his influence evaporated, his legacy reduced to evidence in a murder prosecution. Colton Merriweather rebuilds his life from ruins, working with community organizations, testifying in proceedings against former colleagues, trying to become someone worthy of the trust he violated. Belmont County transforms under federal oversight, its institutions reshaped by requirements that would have been unthinkable before a woman in judicial robes spoke truth to power in a marble courtroom. And in Washington, a senator who thought himself untouchable makes phone calls to a judge who refuses to be silenced. The night deepens around her apartment. The city lights glitter like scattered stars. The future stretches ahead, shaped by battles not yet fought and victories not yet won. She has waited 20 years for justice. She can wait longer, because some debts are not settled in single payments. Some truths are not revealed in single revelations, and some stories do not end until every thread is pulled, every connection exposed. Every powerful man who thought himself above accountability learns that he was wrong. The photograph of the Magnolia Club dinner waits in its file. Senator Vernon Ashworth waits in Washington, and Vivian Ashford Tate waits for nothing. She has work to do.